hard to know where to start with the baseball legend that was Tony Gwynn. So let's begin with the low point, or at least what qualifies as one from one of the best hitters who ever lived. April 14th, 1986. Gwynn and the Padres are facing their division rival LA Dodgers and all-star hurler Bob Welch. Welch is dealing. He strikes out Gwynn in the first inning, the third inning, and again in the fifth inning. 3 Ks and 3 at-bats. To say that this is an unusual experience for Gwynn is an understatement, but he doesn't give up. He singles off Welch in the 8th and then scores the winning run in the 10th. The Padres win 4-3 thanks in large part to Gwynn, who's actually just played one of the worst games of what would be his 20-year career. Why was it such a bad game for Gwynn? Well, he struck out 3 times. That happens to pretty much every big league hitter, especially these days, but it only happened that one time to Gwynn. Just that once. That's right, Tony Gwynn, who played more than 2,400 Major League Baseball games, and only in that April game against Bob Welch and the Dodgers, struck out more than 3 times at the plate. It's almost impossible to wrap your head around. Over the years, Gwynn's approach to the plate became a matter of legend. It started with his vision, which he claimed was 2015. Gwynn could simply see things that other hitters couldn't, like a pitcher gripping a split-fingered fastball in his glove. But because of his sharp eye, quick bat, great hands, and prodigious preparation, Gwynn hardly ever struck out. In fact, he never struck out more than 40 times in any season. He struck out only 188 times during the entire 1990s. By comparison, Shohei Ohtani struck out 189 times in 2021, during his MVP season. Gwynn had such low strikeout totals in large part because no one was better at hitting with 2 strikes. Amazingly, he finished his career batting .302 in those counts, the best mark for any player since pitch count records began being tracked. The second highest average with 2 strikes behind Gwynn, Wade Boggs all the way down at .262. How hard was it to face Tony Gwynn? Well, chew on this. Gwynn and Hall of Famer Greg Maddux faced off 107 times during their careers. Maddux struck out 3,371 batters during his playing days, but he never struck out Tony Gwynn. Never. Not once. Maddux liked to say that if a pitcher can change speeds, every hitter is helpless, limited by human vision. Except for that beep Tony Gwynn. But before we get more into that, I want to take a second to tell you about how you can win an officially signed Ronald Acuna Jr. baseball, courtesy of today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, and their immensely entertaining pick'em system, which allows you to choose between the over or under on a multitude of daily available stats, ranging from strikeouts, hits, pitch count, to their fantasy points. Then you simply select 2 to 5 picks, and if your picks are correct, you can win anywhere from 3 to 20 times your initial entry amount. Or if those stakes are a bit too high for you, you can always go with their insured system, which allows you to get 1 pick incorrect in exchange for a lower multiplier. Now, as for the officially signed Ronald Acuna Jr. baseball giveaway, all you have to do to be eligible to win is go to UnderdogFantasy.com and sign up with promo code MTC. On top of that, Underdog will double any initial amount deposited up to $100. The link will be both in the description and pinned comment below. Again, that's promo code MTC at Underdog.com to be eligible to win an officially signed Ronald Acuna Jr. baseball, as well as doubling your initial deposit up to $100. Now, back to our video. Anthony Keith Gwynn grew up in Southern California, the son of a warehouse manager and a postal worker. Gwynn and his 2 brothers played baseball almost constantly, and his younger brother Chris would become a major leaguer as well. Tony was a multi-sport star in high school in Long Beach, and played both baseball and basketball in college at San Diego State. He had over 400 in both his junior and senior years in college. In the spring of his senior year with the Aztecs, Gwynn had 16 points and 16 assists in his final basketball game, and then 2 days later, joined the baseball team and went 3 for 7 in a doubleheader, with the game-winning RBI in both games. In 1981, Gwynn was drafted professionally by both the San Diego Padres and the then San Diego Clippers of the NBA. Gwynn chose baseball and immediately blew away the competition in the minors, hitting a jaw-dropping .462 in 23 games in AA to close out the season. The following year, Gwynn dominated on his way to a .328 average at AAA Hawaii before being called up to make his major league debut on July 19, 1982. In that game, the 22-year-old Gwynn went 2 for 4 with an RBI against the Phillies, going on to finish his first big league season with a .289 average. It would be the only year in his 20-year career that he would fail to hit .300, and it wasn't even a full season. In 1983, Gwynn hit .309 in 86 games as a part-time player. But in 1984, when the Padres finally put him into the starting lineup for good, Gwynn feasted on NL pitching, helping San Diego make the playoffs for the first time in franchise history. In that first full big league season, Gwynn hit .351, winning the first of his 8 batting titles and earning his first of 15 All-Star selections. He even stole 33 bases. Gwynn was just as good in the playoffs, hitting .368 to lead the Padres over the Cubs in the NLCS before they fell to the juggernaut Detroit Tigers in the World Series. Hitting .351 at the age of 24 was no accident for Gwynn. It was the fruit of hours of preparation, both in the batting cage and in the tape room. Decades before big league hitters each had iPads stocked with video footage and analysis of at-bats, pitchers, hitting mechanics, and baseball savant data, Gwynn recorded his games at home on his VCR to study his ABs afterwards. He took his videocassette library on the road with him in a suitcase, so he could study in hotel rooms too. His teammates jokingly called him Captain Video. Eventually, Gwynn paid $85,000 of his own money to help the Padres install a then state-of-the-art video room in their clubhouse, so those skeptical teammates could have access to the same film he had been benefiting from. Gwynn's resulting baseball IQ was off the charts. No one in baseball knew his swing, the opposing pitchers, the defense, or even the umpires better than Gwynn. He knew pitchers' tendencies so well that even when his teammates had stolen the opposing team's signs, he refused to be told what was coming. And it wasn't just his own swing he knew. Once, when outfielder Al Martin joined the Padres, he started hitting the ball to the opposite field with power as he utilized a new open stance at the plate. He couldn't figure out what was going on, but Gwynn knew, and showed him exactly why it was happening. And by 1985, Tony Gwynn and his thousands of hours of preparation were only getting warmed up. It will be hard for anyone to follow up a year in which they hit .351 as Gwynn did in 1984, but Gwynn did post another strong season in 1985, hitting .317 with 197 hits and earning another All-Star appearance. He was well on his way to dominating the NL during the 1980s. He got even better in 1986, hitting .329 with the league-leading 211 hits and 107 runs. He also won his first of 5 Gold Glove awards. His 135 OPS Plus nearly reached 1984's mark of 141. Then, in 1987, the 27-year-old Gwynn took things to a whole other level. He won his second career batting title with a .370 average, while leading the league with 218 hits, scoring 119 runs, and stealing a career-high 56 bases. Somehow, he finished 8th in the NL MVP award, despite leading the league in a WAR at 8.6. Tony would go on to win the batting title in 1988 and 1989 as well, 3 in a row. He was rapidly becoming one of the greatest hitters in the history of baseball. Sure, Gwynn didn't hit for power, but he hit for precision, better than just about anyone. Oral Hershiser once said of him that it sometimes feels like he has a steering wheel on his bat, and he could put the ball exactly where he wanted. This was in part because of his aforementioned preparation, and also in part because he had such phenomenal bat control. Some of this was due to the fact he used a small, light bat, which allowed him to wait back as long as possible before committing to a pitch. As a result, Tony rarely got caught in his front foot, and hardly ever made weak contact in the air, the true death sentence of a batted ball. During his first 4 years in the 1990s, Tony did not win another batting title, though he hit an impressive .324 in that time period, including a .358 average in 1993. Andres Galarraga won the batting title that season with a .370 mark, in a, well, shall we say, generous Coors Field. Then came 1994. Gwynn, now 34, launched himself towards history. After 110 games, Gwynn was hitting .394. No major leaguer had hit .400 since Ted Williams hit .406 in 1941. His OPS Plus so far, 169. His OBP, over .450. But, alas, his chase for .400 and his first MVP award was cut short. A labor strike by the Major League Baseball Players Union ended the season early. It was devastating and remains one of the greatest what-ifs in baseball history. Could Gwynn have hit above this prestigious mark? It's hard to say, but he was on fire when the strike hit, batting .423 during the second half of that season. And if any modern hitter had the skill set to do so, it was Tony. By the way, in 1994, Gwynn hit an otherworldly .397 in 2 strike counts. That was literally better than his already insane batting average in hitters' counts. And believe it or not, he also used 1 bat for most of the season. Gwynn was extremely serious about the bats he used, and he took very good care of them. He even liked to visit the factory where his bats were made, so he could hand-pick the billets of wood. He famously could close his eyes and identify his bat from any one of his teammates, just by its feel. Although he never reached the heights of hitting .394 again, Gwynn just seemed to get better and better as he got older, adding 3 more consecutive batting titles between 1995 and 1997, hitting a mind-numbing .368, .353, and .372 respectively over those seasons, while registering an OPS Plus over 130 and nearly 200 hits a year. In summary, Gwynn hit higher than .350 for 5 consecutive seasons during the 1990s, and did so in his mid-30s. He became the first National Leaguer to win 4 straight batting titles. His 8 career batting titles are the most in NL history, and he won the last of those at age 37. Finally, Tony Gwynn started to show signs of his age in 1998. His WAR slipped to 1.5 due to his poor fielding metrics, even though he still managed a .321 average, good enough for 9th in the league. After knocking off the Astros and the Braves in the playoffs, Gwynn and the Padres finally returned to the World Series, where they faced another AL powerhouse, this time the New York Yankees, in the middle of one of the sporting world's all-time dynasties. Gwynn rose to the occasion, launching a pitch from David Wells off the facade of the upper deck at Yankee Stadium in the 5th inning of Game 1. Gwynn would later call it the most exciting moment of his career. The Yankees unfortunately would end up sweeping the Padres, but Gwynn still hit .500 in the series with 8 hits. It turned out that 1998 was Gwynn's final full season, but he closed out his career with some big moments regardless, including his 3,000th hit on August 6, 1999 in Montreal, a first-inning single. Only Wade Boggs reached 3,000 hits and fewer at-bats than Gwynn did. When asked where he wanted his 3,000th hit to go, he said he wanted it to be a hard ground ball between shortstop and third base, or the 5-5 hole as he called it. That's where he made his living. Gwynn hit so many balls through that hole that he even wrote 5-5 on the tongue of his shoes as a daily reminder. He instead ended up with a line drive to right center, a perfect encapsulation of his line drive approach solidified throughout his iconic career. Because of injuries, Gwynn played just 36 games in 2000 and 71 in 2001, his final season. That last year, he hit .324 with the 127 OPS+. 5 years later, he was a first ballot Hall of Famer, with an impeccable legacy that included 15 All-Star appearances, a .338 career average, and of course the 8 batting titles, tied for the most in NL history. Despite what he meant on the field, Tony arguably meant even more to San Diego. Not only did he attend college at San Diego State and spend his entire 20-year career with the Padres when he had plenty of chances to play for a different franchise, he returned to his alma mater to coach after his playing days were over. Tony Gwynn never complained or demanded a trade. He just turned up every day at the ballpark and hit, and then stayed long after others had left to watch the tape. Sadly, Gwynn died in 2014 after a battle with cancer, but he left a legacy behind him that still resonates today, as cerebral hitters everywhere continue to look to him as the modern example of a true pure hitter. That begs the question, was Tony Gwynn indeed the best hitter who ever lived, at least as we said, cerebrally? I think he definitely belongs in the conversation, even if we today have become more enamored with power and slugging numbers. So, what's the case for Gwynn? First, he had over 300 every full season of his career, over nearly 2 decades. We also talked about the lack of strikeouts, but perhaps didn't go into enough detail on how truly rare it was for him to K. He never did so more than 40 times in any season, and he averaged just 21 strikeouts per year. But it wasn't just the low K rate. Gwynn, as we said, never struck out against Greg Maddux, but he did do something else against the one man who had the pitching IQ to match Gwynn's hitting IQ. He hit .415 against the 4-time Cy Young winner and Hall of Famer. Nobody else on the planet hit Maddux like that. No one. And Maddux wasn't the only star pitcher that Gwynn torched in his career. He also hit at least 300 against Tom Glavine, Nolan Ryan, and John Smoltz, just to name a few. Over his career, Gwynn faced 18 Hall of Fame pitchers for a total of 541 plate appearances, basically an entire season's worth of at-bats against just Hall of Fame level talent. So, how did Gwynn do against the best the game had to offer? He hit .331. Oh, and Gwynn also hit .371 in 9 World Series games. And don't forget, most of the time, Gwynn didn't have anyone good to protect him in the Padre lineup. While his contemporary Wade Boggs had guys like Jim Rice, Dwight Evans, and Bill Buckner coming up behind him and forcing pitchers to confront him, Tony Gwynn was surrounded by the likes of Rob Deere, Marvell Wynn, and Archie Cianfrocco. It didn't matter, the guy could flat out hit. All of this, and more than we could ever describe, is why we here at MTC believe we can confidently say there will never be another Tony Gwynn. Now, thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and click this playlist for other essay content just like this. Have a great day.